Hey everyone, I thought I'd do a special horse racing preview for tomorrow, being championships day number 1 from Randwick. So that means of the 10 races there tomorrow, 9 of them are group races, plus you also have the country championships, which is race number 5. And so on the card overall, race 6 through race 9 are all group 1s. Good meeting from Caulfield. It's a group 3 meeting, definitely not of the quality of Randwick. What I'm going to do is go through and preview my first betting race from Randwick and also from Caulfield. And the reason I'm doing this is so you can see kind of the process it takes to go through and choose bets to be profitable on horse racing. So far in 2025, we're at 140 units profit for the year so far. January we made 53 units. February we made 39.5, and March, which we just wrapped up, was just over 47 units profit. Overall, since October 2021, which was when I started the racing show, I've been betting horse racing since back in 2014 full time. But since I started the investor.bet racing show, we're at 1,598 units profit. Now, what that means is if you're somebody betting $50, you've made almost $80,000 during that period of time. And the really important thing about this is that when it comes to profiting on horse racing and what it takes to be able to not only win, but also to be able to make 80 grand over a few years is how much do you need a stake to be able to do that. So when I say you're a $50 bettor, if that's referring to 1 unit of your bankroll. Now, the 2 races that I'm going to go through and the 2 horses that I'm backing in these races, these are both 1 unit stakes for me tomorrow. That means that's 1 unit of a 100 unit bankroll, or 1% of the total amount that I'm betting with. And if you're betting $50 units, then it's a $50 stake. And to get all these results over the past few years, my maximum bet is 2 units. So any particular time on any race, the most I'm ever risking is a total of 2 units or 2% of the total bankroll. So there's no 5 units, 10 units, or anything more than that to be able to make the 50 units. And horse racing is like one of the best things you can do to build a bankroll, start betting with the betting company's money. We breaks down over the years about 30% profit on turnover. It's a tick under that, but if we just round it for ease of numbers at 30% profit on turnover, what that means is each week we're outlaying around 30 to 35 units across Wednesday, Saturday, and we also have like public holidays and Friday night meetings throughout the year, but it breaks down to be between 30 and 35 units generally each week. At 30% profit on turnover, that means you're making around 10 units profit every single week on average. Now, if you do that for 10 weeks, you've made 100 units. You've now doubled your total betting bankroll. In this situation, you can just take the 100 units profit you've made, withdraw your 100 unit bankroll that you started with, or whatever that amount of money was, and start betting with the betting company's money. Or you can leave it in there and now start betting bigger stakes and make more. And the cool thing is with horse racing, I always say this, is forget any of the sports promotions where they'll give you early payouts or bonuses back for one leg losing in a multi, those kind of things. Don't use any of those. Use all your promotions that you have. Well, don't use all of them with one company, but prioritize horse racing promotions as they are way more valuable than any sort of sports promotions. And if you're able to bet promotions with horse racing and you have those bonuses back for second and third and that kind of thing, then you can be very profitable and make quite a lot of money quickly and start betting bigger amounts. I see a lot of people get caught in this trap where they stay betting $5, $10, $20 for a long period of time, and they're never able to make an amount that actually makes a difference unless they hit on a very good run, or they land a big multi, or they hit a big roughie, and then they just spend their time chasing that. But instead, if you can just build up your bankroll to be able to comfortably bet bigger amounts, then you can then make more money without having to try and just hope for those big wins here and there. And it's a lot more enjoyable way of doing it, and you're then making consistent profits that you can withdraw. So that's a quick summary of kind of the strategy at a very high level behind what we're doing. And you can go onto the website, which I'll link in the description, view all the results. I have posted there every single bet that I've put on for the past 3.5 years or so. So you definitely want to, like, if you're interested, definitely go check that out. But the purpose of this video is to go through, preview the first betting race from Randwick and the first betting race from Caulfield tomorrow, and break down kind of a bit of the strategy of why I'm backing that particular horse in these races. So first thing you want to do is be aware of the conditions that the races are going to be running. So tomorrow Caulfield is currently rated a good 4 and a 9-meter rail. So a fairly big rail there. Position for Caulfield is out quite a long way. But with the good 4 rating, this is pretty much ideal conditions for racing, pretty much perfectly dry conditions. And this website's showing this rain, but when we bring up the weather report, you can see tomorrow afternoon at Caulfield, there's no rain predicted in the afternoon. At 5 a.m, they're predicting 1.3 mil of rain, and all winds throughout the afternoon are under 20 kilometers aside from the gusts. So that shouldn't have too much impact, this is pretty much ideal conditions for racing. And I also love this site for checking the conditions because it gives you the direction the wind will be blowing at the particular time of day. And so you see it's blowing across the course, over the top of the grandstand. This is the home straight at Caulfield. But especially on windy days, when you see this wind be 30, 35, 40 kilometers in this category, paying attention to which way the wind is going to be blowing, where they're going to be running into a headwind, can be very, very valuable information. With Caulfield tomorrow, ideal conditions for racing. Now, race number 2 at Caulfield. It's over the 1,200 meters. It's a benchmark 74 race. And quite a lot of these runners come out of the same race from last start, which was run over this track and trip behind Tatsumaki and also in the same grade, which is important to mention. Heart of Glass ran second in that race behind Tatsumaki, which was back to win that race at 5:50 off that long spell, and it was able to lead and just hold on from Heart of Glass, who was really charging at it late. Heart of Glass is a horse I want to back in this race, and there's quite a few reasons that is the case. Firstly, this was a great first up run. Off a trial where it won that trial by 4 lengths over 800 meters, this first up run was perfect. It's only going to improve off of this and only has to carry half a kilo more going into this race over the same distance. I would have ideally liked to step up to a 13 or maybe even a 1400 meter trip, but I'm still okay with it over this distance, especially considering a better barrier in this race. So if we look at the speed map here, this is something really important to look at. You see drawn in barrier 6 here for Harry Coffey. Last start ended up in the back half of the field and then coming very wide. He'll definitely be in the running lines to one off the fence in this race, but I'm hoping just slightly further forward than last start. So more of a midfield position as opposed to being right back here and then having to almost circle the field. If you can get this horse settled just midfield or just a touch off midfield at absolute worst, I think it'll play out perfectly. To show you the replay of last start, so this was back on the 15th of March, so it's 3 weeks ago, so ideal kind of gap between runs. You generally like to see them 2 at most 3 weeks. Anything longer, you can generally prefer to see a trial or a jump out between runs. We'll just pause it there quickly. Actually, I'll rewind it a touch. So you see Heart of Glass here in the red and yellow silks was a bit slow out of the gates in this race. Tatsumaki, who was the winner, was good into stride and pushes through to lead. But just because it was that bit slow out of the gates, that put Harry Coffey in a bit of an awkward position. You also have Barbaric Lad, who I should mention, is also in the race tomorrow. Ben Mellum from that wide draw just quickly restrained, but did lose quite a bit of ground early. It's hard to judge whether that was from being restrained or just couldn't quite go with them early. I think it's probably a bit of a combination of both. During these early stages, Heart of Glass still having to be restrained back and keep going back looking for cover, because it's not obviously essential over the 1200 at Caulfield. This is something important you want to pay attention to, is the track map. Depending on the starting position, this race is over the 1200 meters. They have a long straight run into a bend, round onto the home straight and down to the winning post. So wide draws and being caught wide aren't as big of a deal unless there's inside bias or fence bias, as it's just virtually a straight run with a half turn. But over your 1400 or 1600 meter races, or even the 2000 meters as well at Caulfield, these starting positions are all very close to bends, which means horses drawn out wide will either have to work early and be caught wide and use up a lot of energy early, which can leave them vulnerable late, or be quickly restrained back, or push forward more than they want to be to try and get across to avoid being caught wide and covering that extra ground. Over the 1200, it's not as big of a deal to be caught wide, but I think this draw is absolutely perfect for Heart of Glass. It'll come on from that first up run. It'll have that bit of improvement to come. It comfortably beat Barbaric Lad and also Namesake, who lined up in this race as well. You can see Namesake was 5th in the run there, getting a nice soft run from barrier 2 along the inside. As we come around, I think there's also a bit more merit to this performance of Heart of Glass as well. When you see a leader lead and win, and a horse comes from well back to run second, and it was also a very close margin for second. It's not like it was 2 or 3 lengths back for second. It was only a long neck really into second. You see here runs straight past Namesake. Barbaric Lad's closing off well, but Heart of Glass, it's hard to see Barbaric Lad turning the table, so that's there as they hit the line. Barbaric Lad also loses Ben Mellon, which is definitely not ideal. And just the way that it closed off there was kind of like the reason why I'd like to see it up in distance, but still a very nice return, and it's going to improve off of that into this race. If it runs up to that again, it'll be winning this race. Of the dangers, as I mentioned, you have Barbaric Lad, who does get a little weight swing on Heart of Glass. So Barbaric Lad last start in that race carried 56.5 kilos. It's down to 56 here, where Heart of Glass is up half a kilo. So 1 kilo weight swing to overcome a 1.7 length margin. But the reason I don't think that's going to make much of a difference is Barbaric Lad was 5th up into that race. You can see resumed back in early January and had a 1200, 1400, and then it was its 3rd straight 1200 meter start going to that. It had a lot of fitness going in, whereas Heart of Glass was first up of a spell, having not raced for 174 days going in. So Heart of Glass has upside, Barbaric Lad doesn't really. So it's very hard to see Barbaric Lad turning the tables. And then you also have Namesake, who had gate 2 in that race. It's drawn barrier number 10 this time around. Over the same track and trip, it was 3rd up there. Heart of Glass ran straight past it. It's drawn barrier 10 this time around, so has a much tougher time. It's not going to get that nice soft run along the rail this time, and is a danger of being caught out wide on the track. So I really like Heart of Glass. As I said, both this one and the bet at Randwick in these early races are both 1 unit stakes to me. These are my minimum bets going into these races tomorrow. That's my look at Caulfield race number 2. Then Randwick race 3 is my first bet there. It's over 2,600 meters. It's a group 2 race. Now back to the conditions up the top here. Randwick is currently a soft 7 with a true rail for Champions Day. With the soft 7, a lot of that is due to the rain last week, which forced the Sydney meeting to be postponed until Tuesday. Randwick's definitely drying out. There's a good chance this track even gets down to close to a good 4 at soft 5 at absolute worst by tomorrow afternoon. Sunny conditions expected, ideal conditions for racing. So it's Randwick tomorrow, looks absolutely perfectly. This is our first bet there, but we are betting in a lot of races. We have a total of 20 bets tomorrow, including 2 multis. I've spoken about this previously. A lot of people are fully against multi-bets and think they're the worst thing in the world. But when you do multis in a strategic way, and when I say strategic, what that means is any legs that you're putting in a multi-bet need to be over the true odds. So multis are bad if you're taking multiple selections that are all under the true odds, but you can actually increase your overall edge if you take 2, 3, 4 legs that are all over the true odds. Now you're actually increasing your expected value overall. And one thing that I've shown people how to do in the racing show is if you have promotions and you're betting on horse racing, now you don't even need to have promotions to profit on horse racing first of all, but let's say you have promotions. If you are getting bonuses back for 2nd and 3rd, instead of just firstly, worst thing you can do is putting that bonus on the next race that's coming up, and hopefully you get something back for it. Second thing, which is, I guess, a little bit better, but not as great, is turning it over using a bonus turnover method effectively, like match betting, and getting 60, 70 or so % returned. That's okay. Well, at least from a $50 bet, you're getting $35 back. But the best thing you can do is actually allocate those bonuses on specific races in the future. So what I recommend for everyone in the racing show to do is whenever on a day, like on a Saturday, when we get 3, 4, 5 units back in bonuses or something like that, just for example, is hold on to those bonuses and then we'll outlay them over the next week. And that'll be on a combination of singles and on a multi on Saturday. And doing this strategy allows us to turn those bonuses, say a $50 bonus bet, into $55 cash. So instead of getting, because we go at 100 to 110% profit on turnover from those races, from those bonus bets of how we allocate it. So instead of turning it over and just getting $30 or $35 back from a $50 bonus bet, you're getting $50 or $55 back consistently long-term over the years, not just from one bonus bet. Obviously, you don't just want a once-off in doing. That's averaged out since 2021. So that's really, really important. That's why if you have promotions on horse racing, you can make a lot of money really quickly and start actually making decent profits from your horse racing. Like if you're betting $50 units, you're making 10 units a week, that's $500 a week you're making on average throughout the year. That's 25 grand a year, or 26 grand a year, I think it equals out to. So on the website, you can go through, look at all the results so you can see how it all kind of breaks down. With this race tomorrow, ideal conditions, and the horse I want to back here is Alicante. It's going to be your leader. We'll first look at the map here, but I already kind of knew this. This horse always goes to the front, and Strawn in barrier number 4, so Tim Clark will be straight to the front. He's 2 from 3 on this horse, and the only defeat was when he was run down in the very last stride by Cadaver. This race tomorrow, from gate 4, he should find the front fairly comfortably. It's stepping up from 2,400 meters up to the 2,600, which is perfect for the Waterhouse and Bott stable. I really like when their horses go up in distance as opposed to staying at the same distance or going back in distance. That's perfect. Third up now, a bit more upside to come as well off that last start performance. It is stepping up in grade and has to carry a kilo more, which isn't ideal, but I think it's okay with this horse. Last start, definitely didn't have everything go to plan, and this win ended up being super impressive. It helps if I click on the right race. But this win in this race was really good. So it's drawn in barrier number 4. This is over 2,400 meters at Rose Hill. And you see, it was drawn in barrier 4, touch slow out of the gates. The horse inside of it jumped very well, but Alicante copped a bit of a check there. Once it gets that bit of room here, you can see Tim Clark starting to ride along to get it pushed through that gap and work along to find the front, stepping up 400 meters in distance and only being second up, coming off a win first up. He found the front, he didn't completely slow down. He kept on running them along, didn't try and allow horses to catch up. And the one thing I quickly want to mention here as well, while they're in the mid-race, is Birdman, who also runs in the race tomorrow. It had absolute run of the race here. 1 out, 1 back, and was in the prime position. If any horse was going to beat Alicante in this race, it was going to be Birdman. I was just watching Birdman back there and forth, just thinking that's going to be the runner that will peel out, and if Alicante doesn't give a strong kick, it'll be right there. But as they come around the bend, Alicante's still in a groove. Tim Clark hasn't gone for the horse completely yet. As they get straightened up, he really starts to push it along. But Birdman, Zach Lloyd got going, had Birdman looming up here, and once Tim Clark pulls the whip on Alicante, he quickly extends the margin, and up to the 2,600 off this run over 2,400. Considering Birdman had the perfect run, it's super difficult to see it turning the tables on Alicante, who was very strong, eased up on the line. Very, very dominant performance. Athabaskan, who ran second in this race, it also had a very nice run, just midfield off the fence. It built into it nicely, under quite strong riding coming around the bend, but finished off the race well as we scroll through, but still got a big margin to overturn. Those are the 2 key horses in the market that are coming out of that same race as Alicante's last start that are looking to turn the tables. You have Birdman with the blinkers on for the first time and Jamie Mellom going on board. But up in distance, I find it hard to see it turning the tables, even though it has performed well on slightly rain-affected tracks before. And then you also have Athabaskan, who gets that weight swing. But drawn barrier number 12 will need a very, very good ride from Tommy Barry to not be caught out wide in this race, whereas we know Alicante will get run of the race. The other thing I want to highlight with Alicante is how strong it was in its first up run over the 2,000 meters. The important thing here is drawn inside, not the best out, not the worst either. Clark rolls through, holds the fence here, but has to work to find it. And then through the first 600 meters of this race, was really being eyeballed up on speed. So not getting that time to relax in the early stages, being pushed along. Then Alicante starts to bridge a margin, but didn't get everything its own way during that early stages, which is very key to pay attention to. Then as they come around into the home straight, there's kind of a wall of horses here chasing Alicante as they get to the 300, and leaders can be very vulnerable, especially after doing work early in this kind of situation. But I love the way the horse keeps on fighting and holding that margin through the line. And as we see from that previous replay, it was very strong up in distance, which is going to be the case tomorrow. Also, as we skip through here, you can see it's not ideal because they cross to the whatever, but you can generally see here past the post if that horse is holding a margin, which Alcance was in this race. So the 2 runs this prep were great. Third up now, still a bit of upside to come. Gets run of the race up on speed, and it's going to be the one they will have to get past. Outside of that, just quickly touch on the other key runners in the race. You have Waltham, who's coming off 2,400 meter win at the Gold Coast in a benchmark 85. This is a big step up in grade for it, going from a Gold Coast 85 to a Sydney Randwick Group 2 race. It does drop 6 kilos and gets Blake's shin on, and we'll get a soft run from gate number 2, but it will have to improve dramatically to be winning this race. And then the only other runner in the race that, and is in my opinion, the main danger, just because it's a question mark runner, and that is number 1, Desert Hero. It has to carry the top weight. The reason why it's a question mark runner is it's coming from over in the UK. This will be its first run in Australia. And over these staying trips, you always have to be wary of UK staying form against Australian staying form. The benefit we have is if you go back through Alcance's previous form a few preparations ago, that was all Irish staying form since being transferred to the Waterhouse Spot Stable. And this is only its second preparation in Australia, and it's going very well so far. With Desert Hero, it brings group form as well over. Last start was at Ascot back in June last year, so hasn't raced for quite some time. Beaten 16 lengths in that race behind Isle of Jura. Prior to that, over 2,400 meters, ran 5th behind Middle Earth, beaten 8.3 lengths in that race, but was $2 favorite. Watching the replay of that race, definitely got run of the race just in behind the speed, but had no answers in the straight. The question mark with Desert Hero, well, first quickly thing I want to say is Middle Earth has since come over to Australia. Won first up down in Melbourne, and then was poor in its following run, so kind of 50-50 on it. But the fact that it comfortably beat Desert Hero says to me that it's definitely stronger. But with Desert Hero, in its last start, they went right back. In its run prior, they went forward and got a little bit of cover. From barrier number 14, it's a tricky map here for Ryan Moore. He's likely going to need to go forward, because if he goes back, he's going to be in a world of trouble trying to avoid being caught wide, which would make it very difficult for this horse over the 2,600 off such a long spell. But if he goes forward, he might be able to find a position, but still may get caught outside the lead or something like that with a bit of cover, without cover. But ideally, this horse needs cover, and will need to just be able to slot in behind horses and then peel out to be able to give it its chance to win. So I find it difficult to see it winning, but if it really brings its best form and gets the ideal run, then it's definitely a chance. But we're getting $3 or roughly around that for Alcance to be winning this race, which for me is definitely a nice enough price to get involved. The prices kind of range from $270 at the tab to $315 at BoomBet based off these companies that it shows on here. One thing is you generally always want to shop around and get the best possible odds. A lot of the time there's fairly sizable differences between the bottom odds and the top odds. And if you're constantly taking the lowest odds on a runner, then you're just doing yourself a disservice and not maximizing what you could be winning. So always shop around, get the best odds for every bet that you're having. So those are going to be my 2 first bets at Caulfield and Randwick tomorrow. Caulfield race 2. Heart of Glass, and then Randwick race 3 Alcance. As I said, we have 20 bets tomorrow, including 2 multis. It's going to be tomorrow based on the runners that we have. So we have a 1 multi which is paying $23.50, and then another multi which is paying $15.59 at the moment. Those are going to be our 2 multis plus the rest of the other bets that we're having, which are single bets. If you're interested in the racing show, I'll put the link in the description where you can find out more information about it. I'd love to have you part of it so that you can be profiting on horse racing. We have group racing at the moment, so real high standard racing over the next month or so throughout the autumn carnival, and definitely exciting times coming up. Plus at the moment, we have NRL season up to round 5, AFL season up to round 4. Check out the previews of those, which I've posted on the channel as well if you're betting on the footy this weekend. Thanks guys for watching and following the channel. Good luck with your bets this weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.